Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hanging with the Elderlies. I am your host, Felicia Phillips, and this is my lovely mother, Beverly, one half of the Hanging with the Elderlies tribe. And we are here today to talk about caregiving. So we're going to have lots of fun. We want you to sit back, relax, enjoy. We want you to go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Get your pads, get your pens, and get ready to learn all about caregiving from someone who has done it 3 times over. And it's not me, but it's my mom, Beverly. All right? So we're going to hop through. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So again, this is our first episode of 2022. And so we're doing some things differently. We want to have a lot of fun. We want to provide information that is helpful for you if you are a caregiver or if you just want to be prepared, because at the end of the day, we all get older. Our parents get older, our spouses get older, and you may in fact find yourself in a space where you have to assume care for a loved one. And so sitting with me here today is my mother, Beverly Day, and she is going to be sharing some of her experience as a caregiver. But before we do that, we want to have a little bit of fun, right? We want to try some new and different things and see what works and what doesn't work. So you guys go ahead and give us your feedback as you're watching this. But we're going to start off with just checking out some headlines today. I'm going to grab my phone and I'm going to go to the news section and just check out some headlines. And we're going to have a little bit of a dialogue. I am 45 years old. My mom is 72 years old, and there's a lot going on in the world. And it is always just interesting to hear the feedback from those who have been around a little bit longer. And so that would be you. So we're going to talk about the headlines, right? And then we're going to jump into the whole piece about caregiving. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and Google and see what's going on. But what have you been watching? She watches the news all day long. All day long. So what headlines have been sticking out to you?
All day long, and I go to the seniors.
What headlines have been sticking out for you? What's going on in the world?
All
right, I'm gonna Biden.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read some headlines and let's see what we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
All right. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time here, so let's get into it. All right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. The CDC says to avoid 22 destinations, including Israel, Caribbean islands, and Australia. That's one option. Or we can talk about the 190-year-old turtle, Jonathan, who's the world's oldest. There is Oscar Mayer hot dogs and Velveeta cheese getting more expensive. What else? Or Bangladesh hospital named world's best new building. What sounds interesting to you?
The hot dogs.
The hot dogs. You want to talk about food? All right, so tell me what you know. Says Oscar Mayer hot dogs and Velveeta cheese are getting more expensive. The makers of top food and consumer good brands plans to raise prices in the spring, dashing shoppers' hopes for quick drop in grocery bills. So, as a caregiver, I do the grocery shopping for the entire home. And so my mother may not really be privy to how much groceries have skyrocketed. The price of groceries have skyrocketed. And we actually don't eat a lot of pork bacon here, but I've been seeing all over Facebook that bacon just costs so much and people are just complaining about it. So Mom, if bacon is going up, how much do you think it costs right now?
$3.99. Yeah.
$3.99 a pound? Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna hop on over to Instacart and we're gonna see exactly how much it costs. So what's the most that you would pay for some bacon? You eat bacon?
I love bacon.
You love bacon? What kind of bacon? Pork bacon, turkey bacon, beef bacon? I like pork bacon. You like pork bacon. And you said that it should be how much? $3.99?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the most that you would pay?
$6.
You would pay $6 for a pack of bacon?
Mm-hmm.
And how long would that last your family? How long do you think that would last? 3 days. 3 days. All right. Check this out. Oscar Mayer bacon, 16 ounce, $9.99
Wow.
for a pack of bacon. So bacon is expensive, isn't it?
It's good too.
It's good. It's not good for you. It may taste good, but it's not good for your health
Right.
because it has a lot of fat. And we don't want a whole lot of fat because that clogs your arteries. Didn't your grandmother die from clogged arteries?
Grandmother. One of them guys.
That was your mother. So your grandmother died because of clogged arteries. She probably had too much bacon. Not osteoporosis. That's your bones.
Huh?
Osteoporosis is your bones.
Oh.
All right. So, you guys, are you guys eating bacon at $9.99 a pack? And she said that'll last 3 days. And for how many people? For 3 days. That's a whole lot of money. So, what do you think about the prices? What do you think about the prices?
What I think about them? Grocery prices are going up.
They are absolutely going up. And a lot of it has to do with the pandemic. And a lot of families can't afford groceries. I know our groceries, and we're not going to talk about personal information because this is a public forum, but I know that I spend at least $100 to $150 more on groceries per week than I did 2 years ago at the start of the pandemic. We are a family of 6, so there's 6 people here, so we have a lot to feed, but groceries have definitely gone up, and it's gotten really, really expensive.
Wow.
Sometimes I feel like I might as well just eat out. It's cheaper, but it's not as healthy, so we're not going to do that. All right, so that's our headline for today. So you know a little bit about what's going on. We're going to jump into our topic for today. We're talking about caregiving. Now, just to give you some background, for those of you who are new to Hanging with the Elderlies, again, I'm Felicia Phillips, and this is my mother, Beverly. So she's Bev, I'm Fee, and we are part of Hanging with the Elderlies. So the Elderlies are my parents, John and Beverly, and the rest of the crew would really be inclusive of my entire household. I have a 23-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old daughter, and then my husband. Low-key one of the Elderlies too. But we're not going to get into that today. So one thing that I thought has been a really interesting dynamic when I started Hanging with the Elderlies, my whole vision was to provide an authentic glimpse of what caregiving looked like, what it was like to caregive, what some of the sacrifices, the challenges, some of the joys, some of the pains, and all of those things. And we will definitely do that. But what has happened over the past 2 years is that my father has become a lot less independent. And so in the midst of me being a caregiver for both my mother and my father, which I've been doing since 2017, my mother has really had to step up over the past 2 years, year and a half to 2 years, to really be a caregiver in partnership with me to care for her husband, my father. And so as I deal with caregiving every day, and sometimes it's frustrating and I just want to give her one of these, right? And other days I really sit back and I think about the fact that my mother is in her 3rd caregiving experience. She's helping to care for my father. And then she also cared for her parents 2 different times. And so my mother actually has been down this road. This is not her first rodeo, okay? She's been down this road. This is my first experience. I had a little bit of exposure during the time that my mother was a caregiver for my grandmother, because my grandmother lived with us at some point. When she was a caregiver for my grandfather, I was in high school. I was 15. I wasn't checking for any of that stuff. So, I was around, but it was different. And my grandfather, they were still living independently. And so I thought, why not bring my mother on and allow her to share some of her experience and some of her expertise. Because in reality, she has been doing this for much longer than me. And she did it again with her husband, which she's doing now, and with her parents. And those are completely different experiences. And so we're not going to have time to talk about all three in this first segment. We're going to be breaking it up into a couple of segments, but that's what we're basically going to talk about today. So I have tried to prepare my mother as much as possible in giving her a sense, just for her level of comfort, giving her a sense of what we were going to talk about and some questions for her to think about. And before I go with the first question, I want to just tell you a little bit about their background. So again, mom is 72 years old. Mom has a couple of chronic conditions that we're working through. And so she is comfortable with the things that I'm sharing. What's some of the things I'm sharing? I'll say that we actually may talk about one of the things and kind of figure out what the thoughts are on that. But she has diabetes, although it's very well managed. Super proud of her. She's lost over 60 pounds, and she has essentially reversed her diabetes and really done a great job with improving her blood sugar and getting her glucose, her A1C within a normal range. She also has hypertension, and we're still trying to just work through that. As she continues to lose weight, it will definitely help, but her blood pressure still remains high as we continue to work on the right mix of exercise, diet, and medications. She also has sleep apnea, stage 3 kidney disease, which according to the specialist that we've been seeing over the past 5 years, we want to keep her there. The next stage, unfortunately, in her kidney disease would be stage 4, which would require dialysis. And so our goal at this point, while we can't reverse the kidney disease in the same way that we can reverse the diabetes, we can keep her in this holding space in stage 3 so that it is possible that she will never advance to stage 4 and require dialysis. But it means that we have to lead a healthier lifestyle. We have to manage her hypertension. We have to keep her weight down. So there's a lot of work that goes into keeping her there. And then she has sleep apnea, which she actually has not been reevaluated for since she lost the weight and really took some steps to improve her health outcome. Right now, she does not sleep with her CPAP. Like she doesn't do anything for the sleep apnea. And then, did I name everything? Oh. And then, now here are the two, and we just have to see where she is with this. She was diagnosed with vascular dementia in February of 2017, and she was also diagnosed with Alzheimer's in February of 2017. So you saw that reaction. That reaction is because she cared for my grandmother who had Alzheimer's, and she's not really in agreement with this diagnosis, right? You don't have Alzheimer's or dementia. The doctor just made it up. Why aren't you talking? Use your words. I don't know. So why did you have that reaction when I said Alzheimer's? Oh, do you have vascular dementia? I don't know. You don't even know what vascular dementia is. So we know that Alzheimer's, that dementia, there's a whole different types of dementia. In fact, my father has Parkinson's, and he has not been diagnosed, but he likely has dementia related to Parkinson's. And so Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. I hope I'm getting this right, y'all. I'm not a medical expert. But vascular dementia is basically dementia that is the result of some lifestyle choices, having, from your history of smoking. She smoked for years and then she quit. The history of smoking, history of strokes and things like that, little strokes that lead to vascular dementia. And so the last time that you were at a specialist, they said that they were leaning more toward the vascular dementia than the Alzheimer's, but you were diagnosed with both of them in February of 2017. So that's her story. And then again, my father has Parkinson's. My father is 70. Where are we? 4. He's 74. He's going to be 75. Oh my goodness, 8th. On February the 8th. So we are in the middle of planning out something really special for him. he's 74, and he has Parkinson's. And more recently, he has been suffering with hypertension. He had hypertension pre-Parkinson's, but then the medication for Parkinson's tends to cause the blood pressure to lower. And so he did not have high blood pressure for a while, but within the past 2 months, he has been having higher blood pressure levels. So that's what he's dealing with. All right, so that's the background on the elderlies. And so I, along with my husband, my 2 children, I help take care of these 2. And mom helps take care of that. So when I say take care of, I mean, I manage the household, I manage bills, I manage food, meals, grocery shopping, doctor's appointments, clothes shopping, like everything. I do everything for them, except the day-to-day requirements that my father now demands within the past 2 years. So my father has a tremor because of the Parkinson's, and it is difficult for him to do some things that he previously was able to do. So he does require assistance going to do some of his activities of daily living, getting dressed. He's not able to always get dressed by himself. He has trouble stretching his arm out, putting his arm in a coat, buttoning his exterior, buttoning pants, unbuttoning belts, using the bathroom, bathing, all of those things. So that stuff, because he's so private, and I bless the name of the Lord that he is, because I honestly don't want to do any of that. Because he's so private, he only lets my mother do those things. So while I am big picture, right, my mother is the one that is waking up and helping my dad to get to the bathroom, undressing him, dressing him, bathing him, and those types of things, right? Mm-hmm. So let's get into it. We want to talk about your caregiving experience. I, of course, will share my experiences. And if you follow us on Facebook, we are at Hanging with the Elderlies. If you follow us on Instagram, we are at Hanging with the Elderlies on Instagram. And I want you to go ahead and subscribe to this channel so that you can also stay up to date with us. I always will share my experiences, and I try to be authentic, and I try to keep it real, because I want people, as they are thinking about their future, as they're trying to figure out what they need to do, in terms of loved ones who require help. I don't want to sugarcoat things. I want people to know if they make the decision. It was a big decision for us to decide to move all into one home, because we all live together. If you didn't catch that, at this point, we all live together, and we've been living in the same home for the past 2.5 years. And so that was a big move, a big adjustment for my family to be in the same house with the elderlies, a big adjustment for the elderlies to be in the same house with us. There are times when my daughters are 23 and 18, they're downstairs blasting Meg Thee Stallion and all of that in the kitchen cooking, and it's midnight, and my parents' bedroom is right off the kitchen, and my dad is like, turn that crap down. So, we have to figure out how we can all live together in perfect harmony, right?
Yes.
So, again, that is sort of the background of who we are. We're from Philly, born and raised. Yes, I'm representing Mount Airy, and this one is from Northside. My dad is from Northside too. 22nd and Jefferson for my mom. Shout out 19121. I am from Mount Airy, Upper East Mount Airy, according to the Town Watch sign. So shout out to 19119 in Philly, and we now reside in a little area in Northeast Georgia called Brazelton. So we are about an hour away from Atlanta, Georgia. And that's it. That's us. We have a little friend down here. I don't know if she's going to come up here and join the party, but come on, come say hi. Since you guys are just getting to know us, this is our buddy. This is Yo-Yo. Say hi, Yobi. Turn around and say hi. This is Yo-Yo. I'm Yo-Yo's mother, and Yo-Yo loves me. But Yo-Yo knows that my mother needs a lot of attention and a lot of care. And so Yo-Yo spends a lot of time with my mother. And they make a nice little, look at them. They make a nice little pair. So that's us. All right. So let's get into it. We want to talk about caregiving. So I wrote down some questions, guys. Again, I had to do a little bit of prepping for my mother, in part because this is new for her, and in part because, we are working through some cognitive issues. And so we want to make sure that we can get the information out to you as seamlessly as possible. All right. So, Mom, you've been a caregiver 3 times.
Yeah.
Why would you do that 3 times?
Because I love my mother, my father, and my husband.
So, love. Oh, what does love have to do with this craziness? I love you too. But I'm ready to put you in a home.
You're a goddamn lie.
What does love have to do with it? So, you think, in your opinion, I was supposed to get some water and I didn't. Do you think, in your opinion, that it's the responsibility of the child to take care of parents when they age?
Yeah.
How come?
Because the parents took care of them. You, the children, the parents take care of the children, so it's only right then. If the parents age and need help with the children, should help with the parents.
What if the children aren't in position to be able to help?
What do you mean on you?
What if they live in a different state? What if they
Oh,
have
well.
small children that they're raising, or careers, or whatever? What if they're not in position to be able to help?
They have to make themselves in position.
So what about all the people who are in nursing homes and assisted living facilities?
What
Their
about
families
them?
don't care about them?
I don't know.
They're
I don't
wrong?
know their families.
Didn't grandmom stay in the nursing home?
I think she did.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh my goodness. All right. So I'll tell you guys, my mother is as you can see, believes that it is the responsibility of the children
Yes.
and the spouse, or just the children?
Grandchildren.
Grandchildren. She thinks that it is a family's collective responsibility to care for loved ones when they're no longer able to care for themselves. And it is based on her own experience. It's what she did with her mother, and it's what she's doing in part with my father right now. And so my grandmother, and I don't know if you guys ever had a conversation. They didn't, I know, about where grandma would go or what would happen with her when she got older.
No, we never had that.
So they never had a conversation. I do strongly encourage you, if you are in your 30s to 40s, then your parents are about at that age where you should be having the conversation. You should have a general sense of what your parents' wishes are, what they want to do when they begin to age, or if something were to happen and they become incapacitated or unable to take care of themselves. You should have a general idea of what they want to do. So I encourage you to have those conversations, right?
Right.
Have those conversations, and have the conversations early. Having the conversations earlier on means that the family member, the loved one, gets to be a part of the conversation. Exactly. Has some input. So in my grandmother's case, my mother and her brothers really had to make a decision, right? I'm pretty sure, even though you didn't have the conversation with grandma, that you had the conversation. I have 3 uncles, that you had the conversation with your brothers.
Yeah, 2 uncles now. 1 is dead.
I had 3 uncles. Like I said, I don't need you correcting me. You want this?
You want this?
Anyway, and so I'm sure they had a conversation. You had a conversation and said, listen, we got to do something with mom. And they all said, I don't want her. I don't want her. I don't want her. And you were like, I'll take her. Is that how it happened?
I don't know. I was the baby. I was the youngest. So.
You were the baby. That's interesting that you said that, because I have a friend who's the baby. And her perspective is, I don't think that the expectation would be that I step in because I'm the baby. I'm the youngest. And you're saying that you were the one that was sort of picked or selected to step into the caregiving role because you were the baby?
I also was the youngest. So
I just said the baby. That's the youngest.
Oh, yeah, that is.
So you think that you were picked because you don't think it has anything to do with you being the only girl? So like,
Yeah,
as a caregiver, women are the ones that are supposed to do this. So you really jump in and you do it?
I think being a girl helped.
You think that's right?
Well, I love my parents. I didn't mind.
Right. I know. And I think that you would have done it either way. But do you think that it should be the responsibility of the female in the family to take on the caregiving role over the male? And I'll say, like, from my perspective, let's say this. When you took on the role of the caregiver with grandma, I was still
in high school.
So your brothers didn't have children that they were still raising. So from my perspective, although you were the woman, you were the female in the scenario, you also were in the sandwich generation. And guys, we haven't even talked about that. That's probably a whole different set, or a whole different segment. But you were part of the sandwich generation in that you were still raising children and you had this, caregiving situation with your mother. Whereas, and this is just from my perspective, your brothers didn't have children that they were still raising. So they weren't sandwiched in.
Okay.
So it would seem that they might be able to do it and not you. What are your thoughts? And I know, again, guys, my mother just did it because she just loved her mother, and it didn't matter. My mother would move mountains for her mother. She was just going to do that. So I'm just really pushing her and challenging her about it, because some of you are dealing with some of these same situations. And I'm just, we're taking a trip down memory lane and talking about how she arrived at where she arrived, but also want to look at it from other perspectives. So is it, for instance, and this is not right or wrong. So aunties and uncles that are watching this, I'm not coming for you. I'm not attacking you. I'm just putting out different scenarios and the conversations that families really have to have around caregiving, right? So you have you who still has a child that you're raising. And I was in college. I wasn't in high school, or I must have been just I was transitioning to college. I feel like I was more in college than I was in high school. But I'm the baby grandchild. So all the other grandchildren, my uncle's children, were definitely out of college and like all the way grown. And so you had that going on. And let's use an example. One of my uncles, they don't have any children. So should they have been the ones, just by virtue of, well, we don't have any children, because sometimes we think people that don't have children don't have anything else to do. So they're the ones that get dumped on for everything. So should it have been their responsibility because they don't have children, or they didn't have children?
I think we should have all did something.
That everybody should have a role, right? Yeah. And again, I'm just throwing it out there because these are when you guys, when you sit down and have those family conversations, there are different dynamics, right? Some people have small children and they're like, I can't possibly, and I'm in a lot of caregiving groups too. So I'm not just talking about my family. I'm talking about things that I see. I'm talking about people that reach out to me and what I hear. Some people have small children. Some people are caring for other children that have special needs. And then they have this mother or this father that has cancer, or that has Parkinson's, or that has dementia. And it's like, how in the world am I going to be able to do all of this and still manage my home and take care of my home? And so these are the different things. Then you have you may have the sister who is, career driven and off living their best life in another state. And, the other family member may think, well, you need to drop everything and come back home and help us with mom because mom is sick, right? How do you navigate all of those different dynamics, right? How do you figure out what the right choices are?
Cynthia, their mother lived with each of them so much of the time. They rotated.
Yeah, I've seen that, and that's really cool. if you're able to do that. Rotating is really cool. I was in a caregiving study, and there were two sisters, and that's what they did. They rotated. So mom stayed with one sister for part of the week, and then she stayed with the other sister for the other part of the week. And so they were really able to work through that. Now that can get challenging depending on the condition of the loved one. It can get challenging as the disease progresses, but I think that that's a nice way of working through. Let's all be in this together. And then even in our case with my grandmother, I know that at least my mother handled the physical care and the day-to-day care, but I have another uncle that I know was involved, that was always available to help get things that my grandmother needed. And
was that wrong?
Yeah. And things like that. So it really does take a village. It takes a village, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
And at the end of the day, though, I will say, I think that the primary person, it's just like when you have children, right? And one parent, you're not together, never married, or you're divorced or whatever, child lives with one parent, the primary custodian. whether we like it or not, whether it's fair or not, that one parent is doing the bulk of the work. That one parent is doing all the heavy lifting. And the other parent can support, but you can't compare what that supporting parent is doing unless they have shared custody. And I do have some friends who have shared custody and they're doing an amazing job at co-parenting. But if said child is full-time with this parent and the other parent is just doing weekends, even if it's every weekend or every other weekend, holidays, all of that stuff, it still pales in comparison to the day-to-day. And the day-to-day is what my mother did with my grandmother for how long? Over 10 years.
I guess so.
Over 10 years. So when I left for college, my grandmother was still living in her home. And after my first year, my grandmother moved in with my parents, with my family. And that was 95. And my grandmother died in 2006 or 2007.
2007, I think.
In 2007. So for over 11 years, my grandmother lived at home with us. So tell us about so we know you just jumped in and did it because that was your mother and you loved your mother and you knew that mom needed something. And just to give you some background with that, my grandfather died from cancer in 92.
A year before Felicia was born.
Don't know what that means.
When we see Felicia born?
I don't know. Who knows?
She's
not my child.
Born. You know when Felicia was born.
Okay,
and
let's
Daddy
say
was born
92.
Died a year before her.
Okay, so my grandfather died in 1992. And so during that time, between 92 and 94, or 95 really, when she moved in with us, her brother, my great uncle, stayed with her. And so they were able to essentially buy some time.
Uncle Gerald?
Yes. Because my uncle lived with them, right? And it's interesting, y'all, the way she keeps on asking me questions. My mother is really good with long-term things. So the fact that some of these details are escaping her right now is a little surprising, but can you mind your business? Can you pay attention? Can you mind your business? We're here, okay? We're doing this. People are watching and they're listening to you. They can't do that if you're minding everybody else's business, okay? So I need you here. Okay? So 92 to 95, my uncle stayed with my grandparents. Now I will say, we all knew that my grandmother had Alzheimer's long before she moved in with us. We knew at least at bare minimum when my grandfather died. I think that oftentimes families are in denial. And this is me. I was young when this happened. And so I am giving you the perspective of the teenage I was a teenager. So I'm going to give you my teenage perspective. So if it's wrong and if it's inaccurate for anybody in family that's watching, sorry, but this is what I saw. My grandmother had Alzheimer's a long time ago. My mother and her brothers were just in denial about it. And so, we knew very early on, you can't leave stuff at grandma's house because if you leave it at grandma's house, it's gone. It's lost. It's gone forever, right? Why? Because my grandma would move stuff. She would pick stuff up and call herself putting it up for you, and you would never, ever see it again, right? You don't remember that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, let me tell you, that's what would happen at grandma's house. And then there were things that we would find that were just in the wrong place, like, I don't know, maybe baby wipes that you find in the refrigerator. So there were and then on top of it, just, asking the same questions. I remember, that's how I remember that my grandmother was still living in her own house when I was in college, at least my first year of college, because I remember sitting at the table and she was like, so you're in school? Yes. In Atlanta? Yes, grandma. Atlanta, Georgia? Yes, grandma. And then 5 minutes later, so you're in school? Yes. Where are you in school? Clark Atlanta University. In Atlanta? Yes. Atlanta, Georgia? Yes. And so there were all kinds of signs that she had Alzheimer's. But they were in denial, and it happens. It happens, and sometimes it takes a minute for you to get the diagnosis. And doctors are oftentimes very cautious about diagnosing something too prematurely or too early. So I'll say this is back when, you know, a lot of us think that it's called Alzheimer's, like old timers instead of Alzheimer's. So back in the day when I thought it was really old timers, I thought it was just something that happened to old people. I didn't know what the term was, but I knew that something was going on. And so again, my parents, my mother and my uncles, I guess, had a discussion amongst each other and decided that they needed some more help after my uncle got whisked away to go stay with his daughter. So his daughter swooped in and moved him off somewhere. And that left my grandmother without anyone to just be there with her. And so my grandmother moved in with us. Correct. My grandmother moved in with us in like 1995.
I guess so, yeah.
Yep. And so tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Having grandma?
Yes. Yep. It's like a dream come true because that was your best friend.
My mother?
Yeah.
She was.
So it's like a dream come true to have your mother stay with you again? Because this wasn't my dream. But I feel like it was your dream come true. So when grandma first moved in with us, she could still talk and move around and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the time she passed away, she was bedridden and she couldn't really communicate.
She was in a nursing home.
Yeah. So what did it feel like to, and why did you, at the point that she had to
be put in a nursing
home?
No,
that she had to leave her house, why did you decide I want her to come live with me instead of I'm going to put her in a nursing home right now?
Because I loved her.
So people that put people in nursing homes don't love them?
Well, I wasn't working, was I?
You were working.
I just did, but I was doing taxes.
No, you weren't. You were a social worker.
I was a social worker.
Yes, you were working and you were very stressed out caring for your mother and trying to work in a very under-resourced department in the city of Philadelphia as a social worker. So what was that like?
That was hard.
That was hard? I remember you went, and this, guys, for me, I was in and out. So I was home, but I was away in school. So I wasn't around for a lot of this. But it was hard. And my father, you know, God bless him, because you have a spouse that was open to mom moving in with us. Mm-hmm. And my father worked shift work. So his hours varied. You know, sometimes he was 4 to 12. Sometimes he was overnight. And my father was the only driver in the house. And then there was you were doing social work, right? Yeah. And so you said it was hard. What was hard about it? But tell us a little bit more. What stressed you about? Was it getting up every morning and going to work? Were you at work worried about what was happening at home with your mother? Or was it just being tired because when you got home? We had an aide. Yeah. We had an aide come in and help. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So what was the hard part? You had an aide? What was hard?
She wasn't there all the time.
Okay, so then tell us, what's the hard part?
I had to do everything.
Like what?
We talking about my mother?
Yep. See, she's cared for so many people. She's like, wait, we're talking about my husband, we're talking about my father, we're talking about my mother, we're talking about grandmom today.
Well, Ebony was a big help.
So Ebony, guys, was a health aide. She was a student at Temple at the time. University. And my mother hired her to come in and to help to assist with my mother.
And that way I could work. Yeah.
And so, but you ended up taking a leave of absence, and then you tried to go back, and then you had to come out again, and then you ended up having to quit, which means that apparently Ebony wasn't enough. So tell us, do you remember what that was like? No? Yes? You thinking?
No.
You don't remember?
No.
Okay. Well, I know, I don't know all the details, but I do know that, again, she tried to be all things to all people. She tried to continue her work full time and was finding herself just, you know, and just understand, anybody that's a social worker, you guys know that the caseload, I think my mother would say she loved being a social worker. She hated the paperwork and the administration part of it, and it was very overwhelming and daunting. So the stress of her job in general, and then having to come home, and whether I said sometimes they were in denial, but literally when you're dealing with someone with Alzheimer's dementia, you are watching them literally deteriorate before your eyes. Like I said, when my grandmother moved in with us, she was still able to walk around and she was still able to talk. As she progressed, she was able to move around and make sounds, and she used to do this dot and date, dot and date, and she used to do a dance too. She used to flirt with my husband, dot and date, but kind of nonsensical. And then finally, in the last stages, after experiencing a fall, she ended up in a nursing home. So what was it like to watch mommy deteriorate? And is that a part of the stress that you felt, and what led you to stop working and do this full time?
Yeah, it was difficult because I love my mother, and to see her deterioration, that was very hard.
What about her arguing? Like, I remember when my grandmother still could talk, my grandmother was a homebody. So it was really hard to transition her, to get her up out of her house and move her into our house in the first place. But I remember the times when we had to go somewhere and grandma had to go. And I remember her fighting them and saying, get off of me and all of that stuff. Do you remember those days?
Yeah, I remember.
So what was that like? How did that feel? That's what your husband does now. You tell him to use his walker. Mm-hmm. So you're a pro at this, except I don't think you talk to your mother the way you talk to my father, but that's for a different episode. So what was that like?
It was
frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you're just trying to get her in the car so you can go to the doctors, or get her in the car so you can go to a holiday dinner or something, and she's just fighting you and won't get out the car.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother was real dramatic. So she used to be like, oh, like you're hurting her. If you trying to get her out the car and she's fighting you, and it'd be like, oh, like we had like abused her. She was real extra.
I remember that.
So tell me, what was some of the best things? We talked about things being frustrated. Tell me, what were some of the highlights about caregiving for your mother? That many?
What's some of the highlights?
Yeah. You have any good memories of that time frame? I mean, it could be as simple as knowing that you were there and you were caring for her, and you didn't have to worry about her being at the nursing home. Because what happened,
I didn't want to go to them.
As soon as she got to a nursing home, they accidentally dropped some hot water or something on her, so she got a burn. Your greatest fears are that when you put your loved one in a facility, that people are not going to care for them the way that you're going to care for them, and they're going to injure them, they're going to neglect them, or something like that. And they did, in fact, it was an accident, but they did, when she went to the nursing home, drop something hot on her, right?
Yeah.
And she did suffer some burns. Yes. So then, you were able to, for what, 9 years? Or 10 years, you were able to keep her at home with you.
Uh-huh.
And you did make some sacrifices, right? Mm-hmm. You did have to quit your job.
Yeah.
Yep. To care for mom. And if you had to do it all over again?
Would I do it? Yeah.
All right. So I was just playing.
I never liked you.
I was just playing. All right. So you guys can see there's some similarities, right? She took care of her mother. Her mother moved in. Except this, in our situation, we all kind of moved in together. This wasn't our house, and they moved in. We all left our individual spaces back in Philly, and we all moved to Georgia into a new space. So it was kind of neutral, like new territory for everybody. I know that my mother does not want to be in a nursing home. And so I'm going to keep her home until she can't remember, and then I'm going to drop her off.
She's very funny.
All right. Anything else about grandma? You told me before that that caregiving was a lot of wear and tear. It was tiresome but meaningful. Tell me about that.
Because you love your mother, and you want her to be around so you can see that she's being cared for properly.
Right. So, and did you do that?
Yeah. I did the best I could.
Absolutely. And in fact, tell me why you remember why she went to the nursing home? She fell.
Yeah.
And you thought at that point, after 10 years, that you were no longer capable of caring of providing the best care. So guys, that's something to think about. I know, although my mother has a bias, she does absolutely think that children, loved ones, whatever, should take on the responsibility of caring for the individual, and they shouldn't go into a nursing home or an assisted living facility. However, at some point, you have to be honest with yourself. In my mother's case, it was a physical issue. She said, I can care for her as long as she's still walking and, mobile and she can move around. At the moment that she becomes immobile, I don't think that I'm going to be the best caregiver for her. Some of you, it may not have to do with being mobile, right, or ambulatory. It may be just mentally, can I best care for her? My mom has talked a lot about patience. You have to be patient. Well, if you're an impatient person, do you really need the responsibility of caring for someone that is very needy, that needs a lot of help, that needs a lot of attention, that's going to require a lot of you, and, someone that you can't really turn on and off? Like, I can't really wake up. I can kind of, because I have other people that live here, and so eventually somebody else will step in eventually, and my parents are still able to do a little bit for themselves, but I can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, I don't feel like doing this today. I can, and I have, but things go wrong. One day, I had COVID, so it really wasn't my fault, but I had COVID. We thought my husband was getting COVID because of me and my daughter, and then my other daughter had COVID and wasn't trying to mess with us, so she was trying to stay away from us. I definitely had it. My daughter was feeling sick. My other daughter was feeling sick, but had tested negative. And then there was my husband. And I'm like, who's going to get my parents up out the house and stuff? They go to the senior center every morning. And so they got up and they got out. But let me tell y'all, they were looking whack all week. Like you see the kids at school that look crazy, and you roll your eyes thinking, what kind of horrible parents they are. That's how they were thinking about me as a caregiver, because my mom was looking whack. Let me tell you, the clothes, she was dressed, but she was looking crazy. I know that they didn't get all their medication. I'm just being honest. I know they didn't get all their medication when they were supposed to have it, because I managed that. And what else did y'all miss? I think, and food. I don't know what they ate the first day. By like breakfast. Not that we didn't feed them at all, but breakfast. Actually, they did. The very first day, my daughter came downstairs and made a whole breakfast because they almost missed their transportation. The very first day that I was at home by myself. Because the first day, didn't I get sick on Martin Luther King Day? I was sick Martin Luther King Day. So that Monday, everybody was home. So Tuesday, my husband went back to work. And I actually was still able to, I'm a trainer. And so I had a session with a client, and I saw my mom's van pull up and almost leave because they were taking too long. That's what it was. So bottom line is, you can't really turn it off and on, right? So it's a lot of wear and tear. Is there anything else about caregiving or your grandmother that you haven't shared that you want to share about my grandmother that you want to share? You talked a little bit about what it was like. You had to change her diapers. How was that?
It was okay. You got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Okay.
Please look at me.
Okay. That's all I remember. What else? I remember my grandmother. I was so upset. My grandmother, I came home, I think, for about a year in between college and like starting the beginning of my whole career and all of that stuff. And I had my oldest daughter, and my grandmother at that time was getting up in the middle of the night and wandering around, which is common with people with Alzheimer's, but irritating when you have a small baby. Like, I just got the baby to sleep, and then you running around acting crazy, shuffling around and stuff. And yeah, and all of that. And so my grandmother would just decide to go to the bathroom in the strangest places. So I remember one time she peed in a little hamper. And then one time, this is the time that bothered me, she went and peed in my baby's bathtub. Now, y'all know when you're like new mom, like your first child, everything is like sacred. I mean, I guess you don't want anybody peeing in your child's bathtub, whether you're a new mom or not. But I was so upset. First of all, and it's just funny because I know that how your brain works with dementia and how individuals oftentimes are confused and are not really clear on what they're doing. But it's just so funny the strange things that they do. So she bypassed the whole toilet, and somehow, I don't know if she squatted down or how she got all the way down low enough for my baby's bathtub, but she peed in my baby's bathtub. And I threw that joint away. I was pissed. Ha, pun intended. I was hot with grandma. I was younger and I wasn't as mature, didn't know as much. And I was irritated, like she peed in my child's bathtub. That's disgusting. There's no beach for giving that out. I'm throwing that crap away. So those are some of my memories. Um, yeah, I didn't help. Like my kids actually do. I don't think that I really helped. I think I entertained my grandmother. I thought my grandmother didn't like me my whole life, but she really didn't. So once she got Alzheimer's, her memory started to deteriorate. She forgot that I was the child she didn't like. And so we actually, her Alzheimer's years, we were cool. She thought I was funny and, so I kept her entertained. But I really didn't help with much more than just like entertainment. So who else helped you with caregiving for grandma?
Nobody.
What did Daddy do?
Went to work.
Oh, so he paid the bills.
Yeah.
Can you pay my bills? Can you pay my automobiles? But nobody else helped you?
No. Ronald managed the money.
Oh, okay.
So I just asked that I want to take it over.
You go, girl. She said, listen, I'm the one dealing with this stuff every day, okay? Show me the money. High five. All right. But you would do it all again. And the thing is, I know my mother, I'm talking for you, I'm sorry, but I know, and I feel the same way, when my mother dies, I don't think I'm going to have any regrets. I don't think I'm going to, what I'm saying is my mother has no regrets when she other than losing her mother and missing her mother, but there were no regrets about what she could have done better or more of, or what she should have done, because she poured herself out in loving my grandmother and in caring for my grandmother. Even when my grandmother was nasty.
Yeah, she was mean.
She was mean. My mother has a horrible mouth, but it's a different kind of thing. My grandmother was mean. My mom is different. My mom is really nice and kind-hearted and loving. She just has a horrible mouth, and she likes to be in control. And so sometimes when she feels like she's losing control, then she'll run off at the mouth as her way of just trying to exert some kind of authority, whatever. We're just like, like Chihuahua, like, where's my dog? Little Chihuahua, they just, so all that F-bomb and name calling and all that stuff, that's just my mom chirping. But my grandmother was mean.
Yes, she was. She
was mean. And she was oftentimes fight my mother and stuff. She would be like, this isn't our house. Telling us, so she kicked us out of our house once. She told us to get out. Grandma, this is our house. Your house. When did Beverly get a house? Really, Grandma? Really? So she was mean.
Yes, she was.
But at the end of the day, I remember crying at the funeral, and I remember, this sounds horrible because my grandfather died first. Because I was about to say, I think my grandma was the first close person to die. But I don't know. I don't really remember. I mean, it was sad that my grandfather died, but different. I don't know. But I remember crying at my grandmother's funeral. I was actually really upset because I didn't get there to the nursing home. It took me a long time to get to the nursing home when she died. I still wanted to be there when she was still warm. And when I got there, she was cold. She had already
passed.
Well, yeah, but you still have warmth in your body. I'm saying I was really late when I got there. And that was hilarious. I had started a new job. And so my mom called and told me that my grandmother had passed. And so I called myself popping in the office of my boss to tell her that I needed to leave work. So I go in and open the door. She's meeting with my colleague, Victoria. She's meeting with Victoria. And I pop in sorry, I need to leave. My grandmother, ah! And I just bust out crying. It was so crazy. I thought I was gonna be like, hey, gotta leave, grandma died, and then like roll out. But as I was saying it, I just bust out crying. It was crazy. And then I didn't drive at that. Did I drive at that time?
Yeah, I think you did.
I did have my license at that time, but I didn't drive to work. So I had to catch the train down. It was faster for me to catch the train directly to where my grandmother was than to try to catch the train home and get my car and drive up there. But I still, by the time I got there, she was cold and I was mad because I wanted her to be hot or like warm or something. But yeah, that was my grandmother. And that was a little bit of that caregiving experience. So as we close out, what would you share with people about caring for their mother?
You need patience.
Yo, do you see this, y'all? Every time that you ask her that, and that's telling. She's saying it over and over again. That's the same answer that she's given us at least 3 times during the time that we've been talking. Which I think is telling that patience is really critical because she hasn't come up with anything else. I'm about to ask her right now, what else besides patience? But every time I've presented that question, she's answered it like it's the first time that I've asked, and she's thought about it and came to the same conclusion. So that tells me, as a caregiver, one of the key things that you need to have is what? Patience. What else besides patience, Mom? Is there anything else? Love. So you have to do this from a place of love.
Yeah.
Right? Even when the person is not being lovable.
Yes.
That's what keeps me from not drop kicking you.
That's what keeps me from not drop kicking you.
You can't beat me.
You want to bet?
Yeah. You want to try me?
You want to try me?
You want to try me?
You want to try me? You want to try me?
We can take this outside.
Yeah, we sure can. I'll whip your ass.
See what I'm talking about? Anyway, I think that's it. So guys, thank you so much for watching this. I hope that this was helpful for you. We are going to be going to our next episode. We're going to be talking about the experience of caregiving for my grandfather. And I don't know, throughout this whole conversation, I think I said this, but just in case I didn't, my grandmother had Alzheimer's. So that was her main issue. She didn't have any other health issues or concerns, no other medication or anything. She just had Alzheimer's. And in the end, she died, natural causes. She died at 91. She was put in the nursing home because she did fall at my parents' house. My mom was probably being negligent. And no, I'm playing. It was an accident, but she fell and was no longer able to move around, and that's why she went to the nursing home. But prior to that, and even after that, she didn't have any other issues. She just simply had Alzheimer's, and she died at 91. And so that was my mother bringing my her loved one into her home, integrating her into her home, changing, making adjustments with her career, quitting, trying to do it and work it out. Now, did you have therapy during that time?
I had therapy. I think I had therapy after Grandma died.
Okay.
I couldn't go somewhere. Oh, for a while I couldn't go see Grandma in the nursing home.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, we're going to have to talk about that, y'all, because I didn't know that. I always feel bad because I kind of thought once my grandmother went to the nursing home, she was just going to be there forever. And so leaving my mother's house to go to my house, we passed the nursing home often, but I never stopped. And I did feel bad after she died because I was like, Dad, all the times that we passed back and forth by here, and I didn't pop in to check in on them. I didn't know about that. Yeah. So we are actually we're going to do a segment and talk about caregiving and therapy and, maintaining your mental health. And so that is really good.
I went to a therapist for a while.
Yeah, that's what I just asked you.
Yeah, Dr. Real.
Mm-hmm. Was he real? So you can see we have a lot to talk about, but in our next episode, I painted that picture of what my grandmother, that experience was like, because that was a long-term caregiving situation, and that was in home and a lot of dynamics that are kind of similar to what I'm dealing with now. With my grandfather, it was a different dynamic, and we're going to be talking about that in the next episode. So I want you to tune in. I want you to subscribe. I want you to follow us, like us on Facebook and Instagram, and follow us for the latest. We're going to continue to bring you information and fun on caregiving, right? It's not all fun. It's not a lot of fun at all, honestly, but it is manageable. You can do it by the grace of God. I'm doing it. My mother has done it 3 times over. And so in our next episode, we're going to talk about caregiving more short term and when you don't live with the person. My grandfather had cancer. My mother served in a caregiving capacity, but it was different from what she did with my grandmother. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in our next episode. So I want to thank you guys for joining us. Please, please, please like, share, comment. If you have questions for us, let us know. If you have topics that you want us to talk about, let us know. We'll be happy to oblige you. And otherwise,
Farewell. I'm Beverly Bay.
And I'm Felicia Phillips. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dance. Have a little